Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, hello. Oh, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Gets over 50 and you perk right up, don't you?
Is that what it is? Is it over?
It's going to be like 60 or something in episode.
Yeah, but it's so great. Chris Potter's here. It's a Friday. You're a harbinger of the weekend, for me, so... You're like the first robin of spring.
That's nice. That's nice to hear. Usually, during the course of my workday, I am not such a bearer of good tidings.
You're like a daffodil, a crocus.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the 11th of the month of April, and so here we are. Ay. So I'm not sure what to start with here. There's a lot of things I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
Is there anything in particular that's
I put myself in your capable hands.
All right. Okay.
Look at all those clippings. I can't wait to get through them.
Okay. Before we get to... no one else wants to necessarily talk about this, but have we talked about this case that Kathleen Kane has...
Yeah, I don't think we have.
Well, what the hell do you think's going on with that thing? Because they've just released this trove of...
Yes.
This strikes me as so odd. What is it?
Well...
Is she... Whose side are you on at this point?
I don't know. The thing that makes me the wariest about the initial prosecution, the case that she dropped was...
it was a sting. It was
a sting operation, and you got their informant who's going around wearing the wire, and he goes up to these folks in these Philadelphia area legislators, and he's like, "Here's some cash in an envelope. I'm really hoping you vote against voter ID." And that was that was the thing that was supposed to, any Philadelphia area Democrat, especially a black Philadelphia area Democrat,
you don't need to be bribed for that.
So why do you use
and he
of
says
all
they
the
took
issues
the money.
Of all the issues in the world that you're going to use?
But he says they took the money.
Yeah, but the problem is that there's really and people are trying to change this in Harrisburg now. There's nothing that says you can't take.
Oh, that's right.
What you're supposed to do is report it. The crime was
they didn't report
in Harrisburg's famously slipshod ethical world. They didn't report it on a document, so you can do pretty much whatever you want as long as you fill out a form. This
other thing, I don't have it here. He himself, was involved in a case of graft. This is the
welfare fraud.
Welfare fraud. And there were over 2,000 counts against him.
Yeah.
Lay down with dogs, you get fleas. I don't know. What? I don't like law enforcement operating like this, or whoever. So who started this? The DA.
It was started. I believe it was started in the Corbett administration.
The AG's office.
It was started in. Oh yeah, it was definitely started in the AG's office during Corbett's term.
So Corbett started.
And then his successor when he became governor, who's Kelly. I'm forgetting her first name.
Yeah. But kept it going. But, okay, so now Kathleen Kane, the current AG, has said that she thought it was tainted because of racial bias because I guess the informant said he was told to only go after members of the Black Caucus.
Mm-hmm. Now, the person who was involved in this case, who now works for the Philadelphia District Attorney, Seth Williams, he says he himself is black and says that that's not true.
Well, how do you believe a welfare fraud guy who had 2,000 things against him? How's a jury supposed to believe him? How would we believe him?
Yeah.
So now the guys who picked this guy to be their main person in the sting are saying he's a liar. We didn't say that. Well, yeah, he's a liar.
Yeah.
So
this is what would have happened to you in the court.
This is why Kathleen Kane is saying, hey, you think this is such a great case? Go ahead, take it.
Yeah.
You prosecute.
And what's interesting is the DA, who I just mentioned, Seth Williams, said, okay, send me the documents. Go ahead, send me the original documents.
Really?
I'll look at this. But what then he also said, he was quoted in one of the papers this morning saying, was he thought because of the things that she had already said publicly about the case that
she'd screwed it up.
So in a way, he's having his cake and eating it too. You know what I mean? He's, oh, sure, I'll look at this. But if I don't do anything, it's still your fault.
So
the other thing we should say is that Kane's representation is the case had been moribund for a year before she even, so if it was this live, active prosecution that everybody was so hot to trot on,
then
why was it lying around? We should also point out that within the past couple months, she has filed a suit. She has filed a case against a Philadelphia area Democrat, LaVonna Washington, I believe, for her own issues, sort of separate from this investigation. So it is a little difficult. It is a little difficult to say that. She just doesn't want to go after Democrats from Philadelphia when she's going after a Democrat from Philadelphia. But, we'll have to see. It is a strange set of circumstances. Because on the other hand, apparently these folks, took money.
The money.
And didn't report it.
So I feel like, everywhere you look in this case, I get queasy and my skin crawls. It seems like a lot of people acting badly, many that you can't.
Yeah, that you don't even know who to blame, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
Well.
In other words, a typical Harrisburg story.
That's sort of true. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, the resignation of Kathleen Sebelius, not surprising. I had sort of thought it should happen sooner, but I understand this timing. I'm losing my voice.
Yeah. The understanding being she waited till she cleared the 7 million barrier so she could leave with her head held high, as it were. Yeah,
that's right. So, and they, So
have a little Diet Coke. Do you want me to talk for a few seconds?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I actually just read a really interesting piece about her this morning, which was, obviously this is the big thing, the initial rollout, although they did make their goal. But this piece said, and it is in Think Progress, it said, one of the most lasting aspects of her legacy that people won't pay attention to is that she was a former governor of Kansas, had to work with Republicans,
right.
and was able to take that experience and bring it to governors and politicians in states that were fairly red and convince them to go ahead with the program, and she gave them some of the flexibility to do that. So you have programs like they do in Arkansas, which is sort of private options, something like what Tom Corbett is talking about here. Now, I wouldn't say that these are particularly great, compromises. Essentially they fatten the pockets of the insurance companies even more than they were already going to be fattened by Obamacare. But whatever, she did it, and in the process, she got some of those millions. Part of the reason we hit, these numbers that we're hitting is because she was able behind the scenes to kind of work with the politicians in these states and get them to accept a Medicaid expansion that they might not otherwise have accepted, and to accept some of these innovations. So, did the initial rollout perhaps hinder the numbers? I don't think I would think it's pretty hard to argue that they didn't.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, her work may have also, and her work may have also, her kind of behind the scenes work may have also kind of helped.
The damage done was in terms of political and public relations and all of that. But by all accounts, she's an extremely capable politician and administrator.
Yeah. It's not like she was doing the code.
No, she wasn't doing the code. Somewhere down the line, but she was the person whose head had to roll. Yeah. Okay, so can we talk a little bit about this Murraysville thing?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
First of all, I got an email this morning from Mary, who says her son was one of those who was stabbed and is in ICU at Forbes. He has pancreatic damage and a perforation to his stomach. Oh. He will be okay, she says. And she says, please use your show and 4802 to call attention to mental illness and lack of treatment or even understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
I saw in the paper today...
Of course, who even knows what...
Yeah, we don't know anything about this kid, but I mean, obviously the sense is no one would do this if he were mentally okay. And there was something in the paper today about how experts are saying that everything we're doing to sort of secure our schools is a bunch of bull, and that the thing to do would be things like teaching kids how to handle their emotions and in that, mental health in terms of, they have health classes. Well, what about mental health classes? But here again, here are high schools being told and schools being told to solve issues that have nothing to do with what their mission supposedly is, which is to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. I mean, it seems like we're always dumping more and more responsibility on the schools simply because they're the ones who got the kids, I guess, into.
And that is the arena or whatever. I mean, anything we say about this...
It's just speculation.
It's just speculation, and I hate doing that thing where everybody,
I do too.
I mean, for what's conspicuous now is how little we do know. I mean, for example, I've certainly heard nobody say anything to suggest there was any kind of trouble at home or parental issue, and I've heard there's very little sign that this kid was bullied.
That's correct.
In any way, I mean,
he may have been teased some, but he was not bullied.
Well, I mean, we're all teased. I mean, and it's hard too not to project. Right? So here's this kid. You see him for 2 seconds getting pushed into a police car or whatever, and, he looks 12.
He does.
You know what I mean?
He does. And he looks like this little, scrawny... That's the other thing that blows my mind, that such a little scrawny thing could do that much damage.
Yeah, but Jesus, I mean...
But he was coming from behind. I mean, he was just... This must have been something where most of them... didn't see it coming. The police said, the doctor said that because there's so many wounds directly to the torso, people didn't even react to defend themselves.
Yeah.
So
what would you
nobody saw nobody saw this thing coming.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's.
But you're right.
I looked at that kid, and I thought. If I were to guess,
what?
If I were to guess, I mean, again, you just extrapolate from your own thing.
Yeah.
My guess is he wasn't bullied. Because he looks to me like I looked in my sophomore year, and the people that I knew looked, which was for the people that he went to school with, he just almost wasn't even there.
Invisible.
That's what he looks like to me.
Yeah.
And that, in a way, can cause its own kind of whatever. But it's all just, this is what I'm saying. It's just like you look at that and you kind of extrapolate from your own high school experience or from what you think things are. And no one knows. And I should say, by the way, just in a full disclosure, my father lived in Murraysville for up until this past fall for probably 20 years or close to it. His wife raised their children at Franklin Regional. Both my stepbrother and stepsister went there. I don't have any immediate connection to the place, but there is that sort of family thing, which I guess I feel obliged to disclose for whatever reason.
What?
It's just,
why would you?
I don't know. Just because, I feel weird about it. And part of the reason I guess I feel weird about it, I've just disconnected from it. And maybe that's a part of the reason why. But then maybe partly it's just because the first 96 hours of what anybody says about anything having to do with anything other than the status of the victims here is just going to be useless. You know what I mean? It's useless. I will say the one thing that's come out of this that I feel really that has actually sort of been surprising in a positive way for me is the extent to which, you hear these kids who were either victims themselves or friends of whom who have said, Jesus, I hope someday I'll be able to sort of forgive this
him.
kid or whatever.
I
think that to me is the most ennobling thing about it all, and that's probably what we should stick with until there's really time for people to suss this stuff out. But we live in a 24-hour news cycle world, and
I absolutely agree. I have really been. whatever, gratified, or it's been wonderful. The stories actually, and the just what some of these kids are saying, and I haven't heard a lot of negativity at all. I've heard a lot of this. I hope I'll be able to forgive him. Sensitivity toward him and his family from parents of kids who were stabbed, and little things sort of being corrected. It's interesting how when something like this happens, the girl Gracie, who was all over the national news because she was the one who the docs credited as saving her, seems to be her boyfriend. And she had said he put himself in between the guy and me. And no, he didn't. But that's how she wanted to see it. He, and in his, he in a news conference yesterday said, I didn't do that. I didn't know what the heck was. He just happened to position himself like that and then got stabbed in the back. So he wasn't acting the hero when he could have gone with that. Right. Yes, I saw him coming. So a lot of kids aren't doing that kind of thing.
Right.
Two things come to mind. There's one kid, the guy who took the selfie. I had no idea, but USA Today has a big thing about it, and there's people.
Well, what do they say?
Well, let's hold that in abeyance just for a second, because the other thing I saw on the TV news yesterday, something that really, I turned away from it. The girl, Gracie, who supposedly saved the boyfriend's life, went to the hospital to see him, and the cameras were rolling as they saw each other for the first time since the horrific incident, and as they hugged. And I looked at that and thought, what are we doing here? What are we doing there?
Yeah.
What has happened to us? We have no standing to be there when these two see each other for the first time. This is, for some reason, that just made me crazy. Now,
even though it was an upbeat, hopeful image.
It is. When did everybody's personal stuff become our business? Entertainment. Excuse me. It's friggin' entertainment.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it is. Yeah.
And I just, what? And I mean, obviously the people involved said it's okay, but because they're in mesh, there are expectations, and they're pressured to let us be there. They're pressured by media for us. So because everybody would love to see you, we become so.
Well, was there an objection from anybody in the photo?
I don't know. Obviously, there wasn't. There's an objection from me at how this. I've been squawking for years about nobody understands the difference. The very idea of privacy is a concept that will have absolutely no meaning in another 20 years. None. None. You tell me what standing we had to be there. In a lot of these instances that this happens, who are we to be in the room looking at the two hug each other?
Well,
I am sorry.
I haven't seen the footage. Was it in a hospital room itself?
Yeah.
Well, presumably they let folks in there.
They did.
So
it's their call.
Who are you to say? Who are you as a media figure to say that they're wrong to let the cameras in?
Because I think people get caught up. We all know the drill now. So if you're the unlucky person who finds yourself as a player in a big media event, you know the drill. And you are actually being made famous for a while.
Yeah. She's
been on, all the shows and this and that.
Yes.
And that takes over. And the fact is this didn't happen to us. This happened to them. And I think it would be better for everybody involved if it were more
Maybe so, but on the other hand, 2 minutes ago we were just talking about how we found it ennobling and whatever, a kind of saving grace of the situation that we did have people publicly saying things that we thought were noble things to say about forgiveness and understanding. So, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, right? But you got to take the good with the bad, I suppose. That's a deep thought right there. And anyway, what are you going to do? I mean, presumably the parents of these kids and the kids themselves were amenable to having the cameras in there. And if they hadn't been, then the cameras wouldn't be there.
You're right. I, for one, but I'm somebody who feels like it's polite to cast my gaze elsewhere.
No, which you as an audience member have the right to do that, right? You totally do. That's what I'm saying. I made that decision that I was just sort of more or less going to sort of disconnect from myself from this and not spend a lot of time like watching the TV coverage or whatever. I mean, I'm familiar with the stories that have been in print, but I just sort of said, it's just not something I need to live and breathe for.
What'd you think of Corbett coming running in to get on TV for a second there?
So cynical.
Oh, come on.
I mean, yeah. But what's going to happen? Every politician weighs the decision about how they're going to handle stuff like that, and he's in an election year, and I guess it's not realistic to think he's going to do anything else than. Well,
you just said it. He's in an election year, and he could be on again all the TV stations and even networks breaking in to carry the governor's statement.
Now, do you want to talk? Can we talk about this USA thing? Because I haven't read this story about the kid who had the selfie.
We're going to, but
okay. Do you want to talk about something else? Okay, I just thought you were moving to another topic.
No.
Okay.
Obviously, you haven't looked at the clock, which is your usual.
Oh, yes, that's right. Sorry, because I was so engrossed.
We've got to get a break out of the way, and then we'll come back and talk about this. Who knew there's a thing going on the internet, and USA Today has cataloged it. People casting aspersions on one of the victims. Okay, we'll be back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati on April 23rd at PNC Park. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Oh! You are round MVP.
Yeah, man. Yo, Drew, I finally got round MVP. Round MVP.
No way. That was some ownage.
Finally earning round MVP takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org. Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
I read this. I thought you and your wife should enjoy this. Hello.
Hi.
We're back. Okay, so the kid in question is Nate Simio.
Yeah.
I think it would be pronounced. And Nate, not long after, I guess he had been stabbed, he took a picture. See, I don't understand how he's taking the selfie of himself, but this picture we're looking at is not the selfie. That's somebody else taking the picture of him.
Or it's in the mirror.
Oh, I see.
Mirrors still work on the internet, Lynn. Anyway.
It's a bitch getting old. Okay. So Nate had an injury to his arm. He was not one of the more grievously injured students. And he was, I guess, brought to I don't know where he was doing this from. And so he took a picture that had the line on it. What did he say with the picture?
Chillin' at Children's or something.
Oh, that's right. Chillin' at Children's or something. So he was taken to Children's. Now, I have to admit, when I first saw that, and it was in the hours after, I thought, ooh, there are kids possibly dying right now.
Right.
And you're chilling at Children's. Lucky you. It turns out this is the kid who, by the way, also was said to be quick-thinking heroic kid in that he's the one who, after he was stabbed, pulled the fire alarm. And consequently, people started getting out of the school. Okay, so what's interesting about this is I think this is generational because as I see what people have written, about it, here's somebody, this is an old fart writing, right? It was in bad taste because other victims might have worse, even life-threatening injuries. It seems to make light of the incidents. It's using a senseless tragedy as a platform for a bid for fame. Teenagers are a bunch of vapid narcissists. The world is different than it used to be, and we as old people find this very upsetting. Good.
Wait, did he say that, we as old people?
Yes, he did.
So at least he copped to his being a fogey. Yeah.
Okay, so he doesn't get it. Yeah. The fact is he's not doing this for fame. He is, in fact, as somebody else points out, doing this. This is how you communicate in his world. Mm-hmm. He's letting his friends know he's okay.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Well, I think there's a couple things that go on. And there's actually a sort of debate that's been taking place in media about this, which is people tweet stuff out. And again, they're tweeting it to their followers or whatever. But the potential for that stuff to get picked up. I mean, when I first saw it, it was being retweeted by somebody who was a media person. And it was sort of like in the commentary is this sort of snarky, we now live in the age of the stabbing selfie or something like that. And, a lot of people said, oh, of course we do. You know what I mean? It was this sort of like, this kind of decline of not quite as egregious as this guy or as angry as this guy, but this sort of, sort of kind of dismissive head shake about this stuff. There is a question whether, and you'll see this a lot, especially on online news outlets, where they'll go and they'll sort of, they'll sort of trawl Twitter for racist stuff that people say on Twitter, even if the person in question has like 47 followers or something like that, and then they'll put this person up on like salon.com and then tens of thousands of people see it, so there's a question I think of, if you're going to get upset at this kid for doing that, then what do we say about the sort of media that picks it up and rebroadcasts it? He's not the one who decided to make a national phenomenon out of it. He sent it out there to his however many followers. I wonder how many followers
he has.
And he probably has a lot more now, I suspect. So I don't know. Plus, these are teenagers, right?
Exactly.
They don't always necessarily do the smartest thing in the world. So to get up on your high horse and denounce this kid for becoming a national figure when A, he's not responsible for making himself a national figure.
Not.
And B, he's like 17 years old, and C, he pulled the damn fire alarm. Right? I mean, if he was vapid, if all he was about himself, a narcissist, he just would have booked out of there. He wouldn't have worried about whatever happened to these folks. So when I saw that image, and I kind of think like, I did have a bit of that thing. But if you step back and just think for a second, I don't know about it because he put it out there. I know about it because these other folks did that. So if you're going to talk about like who has responsibility, then let's do that. The other thing too, I'll say is even USA Today, which is where you're getting this from, and it looks like what they did is a sort of on the one hand, on the other hand.
They did a roundup of stuff that was that they were seeing about it on the internet.
This is the oldest media trick in the book. Right? You take this thing, which is this phenomena, and you want to associate yourself with it because you know that it generates traffic and heat and controversy, and then you sort of do this sort of pious, on the one hand, on the other hand kind of thing. So even the trick of sort of trying to put some context around it and pretending you're above it all, you're still doing it. You're still fishing in the same pond as everybody else, but you're pretending you're the only one who's coming up.
I know, because I often found myself in the course of my career is ranting and raving about some subject about media behaving badly and and what am I doing?
Right.
I'm doing my whole show on it.
So let's say this: if you as a media outlet want to talk about the propriety of a selfie or whatever, I think there should be a rule that you also have to talk about your own responsibility as a media outlet for helping to promote it and disseminating it and making it a thing, because you had far more to do with making this kid a national celebrity than anything he himself did.
That is correct.
And he's 17 and you're a professional. So let's be honest about who bears responsibility for that stuff, for sure.
Here's an interesting point. Sure, there's a level of jumping the gun here, an air of disrespect for others on his part. because he doesn't know the conditions of his other classmates. You can scoff and you can shake your fist and head, but there's something altogether empowering about this one. You better believe there would have been a whole bunch of selfies on 9/11.
Sure. Yes.
Think about that.
Yep.
There weren't, because we didn't do that yet.
Yep.
But think of how many, and actually that would have been so helpful to so many people, in fact.
Right.
So, and here's another one. This is another what somebody else said, just so you hear it. When tragedy strikes, the race is on to post the casual selfie that has news outlets tripping over themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if Simeo, the kid, even if all he did was put on a brave face after getting slashed, he's clearly the man of the hour, and judging by his expression, he knows it.
That's true.
Have an awesome prom night, kid.
Well, I mean, really, who's the first guy you read? Who is that?
Eric Sass in Media Post.
Was that the guy who was really
himself? Yeah.
Okay, so I've never heard of Media Post, but now that guy, by taking a strong standpoint on this selfie, has gotten himself into.
Yeah, that's right.
So what? Only people who work for Media Post get to promote their own viewpoints or whatever about this stuff. It's a 17-year-old doesn't have the right to do it, even though he's the one who was actually there. I mean, look, look, I'm a father, right? So you worry about what you said before about, well, there'll be no more privacy 20 years from now. Do I worry about that? Sure. And your kid growing up. So part of me is like a little bit worried about a culture where that wall is broken down to the extent that it appears to be headed that way. But on the other hand, I did this sort of self-righteous thing of these people who are these talking head gas bags, either on cable news or on some website somewhere. And you know what I mean? Like them objecting to other people. If it's too early for this kid to take his selfie,
it might be too early for us to be having this
bitch about it. It's certainly too early for you to bitch about it. Like that was his thing. 24, 48 hours after this thing happens, that was the thing he really felt the most outraged by.
Yeah.
That's what upset him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. I mean, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about things that matter. Let's talk about the services, like your audience member whose son is still in Forbes. Let's talk about those kinds of issues, the mental health issues. What should be done with kids, who are whatever disposition this kid finally has, whether he's bullied, whether he was ignored, whether there was just nothing that anybody could have said, done, or known about what was coming.
We were talking about this yesterday. He was immediately, this thing wasn't even 2-3 hours old, it seems to me, and we were told he'd be charged as an adult.
Yeah.
What is the point of having these things where, it seems like any time a kid does something like this, they're charged as an adult. Hello, caller.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Hi, Mike.
When you first mentioned this, my first thought was, oh, good, the kid knows alliteration. Right?
Yeah, it was a cute
He was no
children
doubt
at
at Children's Hospital, probably a little embarrassed because he was at Children's Hospital.
Yeah,
that's true.
And he thought, what can I post that's not going to sound like, I'm fine, I'm at Children's Hospital?
Yeah.
So he put children at children.
Yeah.
And people are, I guarantee you that's what that kid was thinking, because that's what I think when I'm going to post something.
That's right, and he was thinking, too, about wanting to, show a little, like, I am fine, I am cool, I am, I can see myself doing the exact same thing, actually.
He was just using alliteration, and we should praise him for that instead of being I'm fine at children.
As an old English major myself, I think that's
right, he did.
You make an excellent point, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Mike. You give that kid an A.
Yeah. So
what is that with the charging? What's the point? Apparently there's some law that there's a juvenile justice system and then there's a regular justice system.
And if you do something really bad, you get the adult justice system.
Well, then what's the use? That's bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank you.
It's
what?
And the science
because he does something terrible. He's not a kid anymore.
Right.
He's a kid.
Right. The whole point of treating children differently is because they don't realize whether you're sort of suggesting, oh, well, you should have had adult cognition about whether what you were doing was childish or not. It's sort of a ridiculous catch-22.
Exactly right.
And the irony is that even as the rules have become more punitive over the course of the years, the science more and more fleshes out the idea that kids' brains simply don't function the way adult brains do.
No, and especially boys.
Yes.
Boys' brains, the judgment, the very place where judgment occurs it's still like that baby's soft spot. It still hasn't formed. It hasn't finished. They're still growing until as late as 26, 27, 28.
Right.
But we're he's a lucky kid that nobody, I hope, still is going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll give him a chance to possibly still have a life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Joseph has written this. I haven't read it, so I'm just doing it with you. I have to get this off my chest. He writes, once again, I am being subjected to the constant barrage of information overload regarding this. You know, I feel the same way, and here I am on my show doing it.
Yeah.
But I find myself, I tuned out the news because I'm enough already, and here I am doing it. I understand that it's a national news story, and I understand that it's local. However, what I don't understand is why every media outlet in the city is spending nearly every minute of news time reporting on every minutia of this, from the heroes who brought down the attacker to every single status update of every stabbing victim. Another head shaker for me is the setting up of a fund. Oh, there's been a fund set up?
Like
for these kids and their families. Listen, says Joseph, this took place in Murraysville, a basically affluent white suburban community. These families all have insurance, I'm sure. So what, if anything, do they need with the monies from this fund? That's a good question, actually. I don't understand what's happening and feel like I'm going crazy with all this inundation of news. I'm simply not watching for the time being, but have had to gravitate to other news sources to find out what's going on in other parts of our country and the world. This is really pathetic. Huh.
Well, I would not.
You don't know about what the fund is for? What's the fund for?
I think it was supposed like a scholarship type fund, and I would just caution against assuming it is definitely true that Murraysville is suburban and it is a very white community. I would caution against assuming that it's that because it's basically affluent, that everybody who was a victim here is necessarily affluent
from a rich family.
Look, I mean, I grew up in Upper St. Clair. There were some of us even there who were on reduced and free lunch programs and things like that. There are people in those circumstances, even in the most affluent of communities. So I would caution against making that assumption. We don't really know the status, the situation of any of these families, and you know.
But
maybe the worst case scenario is they don't need the money and they find a place to invest it.
Right, but this is again everybody doing the knee-jerk thing. Oh, these tragedies happening, immediately set up. You got the attention of a lot of people, the sympathy of a lot of people. It's a great time to raise money. That's for sure. I don't know what it's being used for, but yeah, I understand his initiative.
Probably they set up the fund as a healthy, admirable reflex to want people who wanted to be involved and to help in some way, shape, or form. And this was the thing.
Are you assuming the best of people?
I am in this case. I am in this case. I've seen no evidence to the contrary.
Well,
I wouldn't be to the left of center if I didn't think people at the end of the day were mostly all right.
Oh, man. Okay. We've been sent something about that Pope Francis has said, and it ends with, it's sent by Ray asking, he says, I'm worried for his safety. What do you think he said?
The Pope?
The Pope has said. Shall I read it?
Oh, yeah, I guess so, yeah.
It is a closed way of thinking that is not open to dialogue, to the possibility that there is something else, the possibility that God speaks to us, tells us about his journey as he did to the prophets. These people did not listen to the prophets and did not listen to Jesus. It is something greater than a mere stubbornness. No, it is more. It is the idolatry of their own way of thinking. I think this, it has to be this way and nothing more. These people had a narrow line of thought and wanted to impose this way of thinking on the people of God. Jesus rebukes them for this. He says, you burden the people with many commandments and you do not touch them with your finger. And the Pope goes on to say, there is no possibility of dialogue. There is no possibility to open up to new things which God brings with the prophets. They killed the prophets, these people. Who's he talking about?
I have no idea. I was sort of
They killed the prophets, these people. They closed the door to the promise of God. When this phenomenon of narrow thinking enters human history, how many misfortunes? We all saw in the last century the dictatorships of narrow thought, which ended up killing a lot of people. But when they believed they were the overlords, no other form of thought was allowed. This is the way they think. Why would that worry you about his safety? I mean,
well, it sounds like a rebuke of fundamentalists of any stripe, right?
Or fundamentalists, or people who are unbelievers.
Absolutists. Yeah, sure. But I would say that sounds more like a condemnation of any sort of narrow and exclusive way of thinking about faith, about God, or about the absence of God too. Yeah, I mean, definitely. The idolatry of their own way of thinking is a great line. I'll say that too.
Well, there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah. I'd be curious about the context of that quote, but yeah, Pope Francis is okay in my book.
Yeah, he is. If anything, he sure does get you thinking some. Yeah. And gives you some hope.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is probably why Ray worries about his safety, right?
All people who bring hope, and that's true. I mean, they're often slain. It is true,
and it is the case too. I mean, there's an argument that some of what we've sort of seen from the particular breed of atheist we have now, the Richard Dawkins or the late Christopher Hitchens or whatever, is in its own way as sort of exclusionary, that right. In its own way, it's its own kind of fundamentalist, probably because it's responding to the rise of religious fundamentalism. So you get a secular fundamentalism to rise up against it. So it's interesting that you could apply that, what he's saying there.
That's true to that, too.
Basically everybody other than us, the only truly open-minded people. If people just thought the way we did.
I know. Well, then...
And honestly, screw anyone who thinks differently.
I mean, it would be nirvana.
Yeah.
Utopia. All those wondrous things. Okay, we got to get a break in here.
You got your clock back up.
With Lynn Cullen Live.
BergBargains.com is your best bet for great deals in the Berg. Log on today for exclusive bargains from your favorite events and shows like Pyrofest, City Theater, The Improv, plus discounts on gift cards to P.F. Chang's and Winghart's. BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck for Dave 2037 so he can buy anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman. What are you getting Steve 2037?
Steve 2037 will be just fine.
Well, okay, but don't expect to borrow my anti-gravity boots.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Huh. Whoops.
Yeah, good. It's a good one.
You think it's good because she's upset with me?
No, I think it's a good point because I didn't think about it when you said it.
Huh.
So it's
okay. You're ahead of me then. Okay. Barbara writes, I found your use of the term scrawny. That was an adjective to talk about the guy with the knife. Miss it. Surprising. She says, scrawny, surprising. I find this whole situation to be very sad. I certainly feel for the victims, of course. I also feel for the family and friends of the victim, as well as the family and friends of the perp. And I certainly feel for the perpetrator who must have been in such a state of pain or anger or state of mind that is incomprehensible. I'm with you. The fact that we mature and develop at such different rates during our teenage years is a fact that can cause such feelings of inadequacy and being different especially from the A crowd. If I were the parent of this sad young man and heard you call him scrawny, I think it would cause me sadness and surprise coming from you, a sensitive adult. Not appropriate to be in any way mean-spirited concerning the physical characteristic, concerning this sad, troubled teen. Okay, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah. It's okay.
Can I go on?
Yes, I think you can.
All right.
Slightly built, which I think is what you were trying to say there. But it is true.
When he was little.
It is true that when we looked at him, though, that's I can speak only for myself. I was
recognize
consigning
that
him
guy.
into a certain
Yeah.
category, which I myself belong to at that age. So for me, it wasn't. But I totally understand what Barbara is saying. That probably those, in ways we're not aware of, these words kind of suggest themselves to us because we're thinking about people in categories. And that may have been part of what was going on inside.
We all do, because we all have the need to somehow bring some measure of order to our perception of the world.
And we all do that, and a part of it is socially defined in ways that aren't good. But that's
I'm quite sure his parents didn't hear me say that.
You meant no harm, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
You're a good person, Lynn. You're okay.
Oh, she's brought me down. Okay, I'm changing the subject.
Okay.
So, back to that blast at the Chevron facility in Greene County.
Yeah, the pizza explosion. That was the one where they gave out the pizzas afterwards for all the people.
Chevron gave pizza to everybody.
Yeah.
Sorry about potentially,
blowing up your county.
But here, have some pepperoni. Well, now it turns out that the State Department of Environmental Protection, obviously, ran to the scene after the blast, and Chevron refused to let state authorities onto the property to do whatever, and that the state, I guess what's amazing about this is the state didn't just push right past him and say, what the F? We license this facility. Yeah. We have every right to come on, blah, 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 blah. And the state just stood there. Now, according to the spokesperson for the DEP, John Poyster, somebody I know well.
Really?
Yeah, when I first moved to Pittsburgh, he was the assignment manager at WTAE-TV.
Funny.
And then he was the program director at radio station WPTT, where I was. So John and I go back a long, long way. He's a great guy. He says, here's what really peeves us. That sounds like John, too.
I was struck by that quote, peeves.
That's John. Here's what really peeves us, meaning the DEP. Our emergency response teams were down there to do a job, and the permit for the well clearly says they should allow free and unrestricted access, the Chevron should, to a properly identified DEP employee, and they didn't do that. He goes on to say, and I guess I don't have it here, we decided not to make it a pitched battle, and instead focused on getting the well capped and making the scene safe. Well, the fact is, I understand maybe not making it a pitched battle, but not really. How can you focus on getting the well cap and making the scene safe if you're not allowed on the scene? And you're the state.
Yeah.
And they're Chevron. And who won that toe-to-toe? Chevron.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's Governor Corbett's DEP.
Yeah.
Let's put it that. Are you shocked by that?
I'm not, only because we saw something very similar with the BP spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And there we saw it across multiple jurisdictions in multiple states where they really just were able to keep away reporters. They were able to keep away anybody that they didn't want to have around there. And their legal basis for that was...
They kept the feds away?
No, I don't think they kept the feds away, but I mean... The ability of these gas companies, they sort of assert these rights or whatever, which they don't really have. They're used to getting their way. And I can imagine if you were some mid-level or low-level DEP official in, as you say, Tom Corbett's Pennsylvania, and there's a explosion and you got guys standing around refusing to let you in, and I don't know how I would have handled that if I were in that position. You know what I mean? We weren't there. It would be very interesting to know exactly
what was said, what
the context of it was. Was it like 12 guys, standing around and, intimidating you, or just what was the situation there? It would be very interesting to know that. So I'm not surprised simply because fossil fuel corporations and unmitigated arrogance go together hand in glove.
But fine. But does timidity and refusal to stand your ground go hand in hand with the state government?
I mean, look, we had this, back when the Act 13 ruling happened, this is the one that basically overturned the state's drilling, various aspects of the state drilling law. I talked to a guy who'd worked at DEP for many years about the ability of these drillers to get waivers from environmental requirements, and he said it's almost just a rubber stamp. We have a regulation. They say, you know what, we can't really meet this regulation because it's bad for us for whatever reason.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So why? Is it reasonable to expect that sort of supine mentality or whatever wouldn't carry over into other? You would think that it would be different in this state in a moment of catastrophe, which is what this explosion was.
We barely tax them. We give our air, our water, our land to their care.
Yeah.
Administrations, and then they don't. And
at least they're getting cited, right? I mean, the true embarrassment would be if they could just bully these guys away and then nothing, and there were no consequences for it after the fact. Maybe this will result in some spine stiffening on the part.
Yeah, they're being cited for not letting the state on the site for 2 days while this raging fire is going on.
And at the time, there was
can you imagine what the fine might be?
Yeah. A couple grand. Yeah, but they're making an issue of it, which is
for the Corbett administration pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You would think
they made an issue.
You would think they'd be embarrassed to admit that they were backed
That's what
off.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that at least shows some certain whatever. Although, Corbett now, the big thing, what I think is so amusing is of all the shit that they get upset about, they're upset about these royalty payments. That's the big issue that they've taken on. There's this, it hasn't come up around here lately, but Chesapeake Energy in particular has been accused of sort of tweaking the numbers when they give royalty payments to landowners. And now the Corbett's all ticked off about that. Which again smacks of just election year convenience.
That's
right. Because who are the people who are going to be most upset by that? It's those voters out in the rural areas that he's going to need. So he's going to be a strong advocate on their behalf and take on Chesapeake, which is, from every indication I've had, perhaps the least popular driller in the whole kit and caboodle and the most controversial.
Really? I mean, in this whole rogues gallery, they're the worst.
Chesapeake. The business practices there have raised some eyebrows within the industry as well, from what I understand. So yeah, they are, of all those drillers, probably the most controversial.
All right, so I got slammed by Barbara. Gigi's writing to tell Chris I am embracing his comment. I wouldn't be at the left of center at the end of the... You didn't say at the end of the day, did I?
I think I said at the end of the day.
Stop saying that!
What does that... Why is that bad?
That's one of those phrases that drives me crazy.
You didn't even notice it when I said it the first time.
Well, because it's like and everything else. I wouldn't be left of... It's unnecessary. I mean, why was that there? At the end of what damn day? What are you talking about?
At the end of the day when I come on this show and get yelled at for... Tiny little verbal tics by the domineering host.
Okay, she says you said, and you might have done that. I wouldn't be at the left of center at the end of the day if I thought people were mostly all right.
If I didn't think
people were mostly all right. And let's take the end of the day out, and you, Mr. Editor, tell me if it doesn't read better. I wouldn't be at the left of center if I didn't think people were mostly all right. Yeah. That's just extraneous crap.
I would argue that saying at the end of the day
implies... Because the end of the day doesn't even...
I would say at the end of the day implies that, yes, there are things that aggravate us about people that we may discuss on this show. That part of my job is sort of trafficking in situations and circumstances where people aren't at their best. But fundamentally, when you put all that stuff aside... At the end of the day, you say, you know what, you folks are okay.
I am telling you, no one used to say at the end of the day until maybe the last 5 years.
Jesus, we're getting... Once again, this happened last week, too. I felt like in the last 5 minutes of the show, we start going into Andy Rooney territory.
Oh shit.
That's the trump card right there for you.
Yeah, it is. So I don't understand why this guy, this is not in New York.
Shifting gears again? Okay.
Yeah, is suing the East Neck Nursing Home because he said they allowed male exotic dancers to perform for the patients.
What?
Okay. Listen to this.
Okay, this is a story. Okay.
Howard Fensterman,
yeah.
the attorney who represents the nursing home,
yes,
said that a committee of 16 residents of the East Neck Nursing and Rehab Center voted unanimously to have a male stripper come to entertain them. I love it.
This is an old folks home, essentially.
That's what you used to call an old
facility.
folks home. I don't know if it's assisted living.
Okay.
It's nursing and rehab.
Yeah, okay.
85-year-old Bernice Youngblood, a resident.
Is she the objector?
It's her son. Oh, and her son, Franklin Youngblood, initiated the lawsuit. But get this. The lawsuit was initiated after the son found a photograph of his mother, Bernice,
and the guy's
stuffing cash inside the waistband.
Young blood indeed. Aptly named.
But so this is the part that I don't get. So it says she is suing. Her son made her sue. He talked her into the fact that she had been.
What's the basis? What's the basis of the complaint?
I don't know.
What's the standing? Who was harmed?
Exactly.
Is she looking to get her money back?
See, here's what I hate about when
she wants her 6 sweaty $1 bills back. Just settle for.
I'm gonna have to track down more on this one because it doesn't make any sense. The evidence is that he finds a photo of his mother, and then they sue when there was unanimous approval by the recreation committee.
Yeah,
we all think they want to sit around making doilies or something. Well, they wanted male strippers. I love it.
And was the committee was the committee all?
Well, there's all this. I don't know. There's all this.
I mean, the thing is, I'm not a lawyer, but I would say the fact that his mother was actively engaged in this stuff and
doesn't give him standing.
It does not, and in fact, if anything, especially she wasn't actually on the committee.
But you don't know. This is just a nothing little. But it did.
Sounds like a case of unclean hands. It's like a lawyer too who thought that was funny, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to ask something that I have not seen myself, and I'm sorry, I'm going back to Franklin Regional.
Yeah.
It seems to me that the vast majority, if not almost all, of the injured, I know all the ones that are there now, they're all male.
But there were female victims.
There were?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
But the most egregiously injured are all males. I wonder if he stabbed in the torso any woman.
I don't know.
All I know is it's boy, 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 boy.
Yeah.
And that could just
be
who was it?
I believe there were female victims.
Okay. God. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Is it a little early?
It is, but we could just sit here in awkward silence for a minute and a half.
Why don't we just do that? We'll just sit here.
I don't think we could take it. Could you take it? Could you take a minute and a half?
Yes.
Just really?
Let's try it.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, come on.
No.
I mean, you can't just sit here.
No.
Come on, you can do it.
No.
Shh,
I'm just going to fill it up with.
Shh.
It's too much.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I just thought that would be fun.
Are you somebody who literally can't take silence? Because I really think
actually, I'm a very quiet person, as my wife will attest.
Okay.
A little.
Yeah, me too.
Quiet. Yeah.
I like quiet.
Yeah, but that's just unfair to inflict that on people. That's like they can all just turn off at this point. But anyway, okay. Now we're done. 4802 tonight.
Oh, dear God, yes.
Well,
and I wonder what we'll be talking about.
Don't have a show Monday or Tuesday.
Oh, no show Monday, Tuesday.
I'm not going to be here Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
It's Passover. Monday night is Passover. Yep. I'm traveling to be with my family, and so I'm camping.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Have a safe trip.
It's my favoriteest holiday. Love it, love it, love it.
Really?
Oh, I love it! Excuse me.
Well, have a safe trip.
Yes, happy Passover to all those of you who do, and happy... Is there something going on? Easter coming up, right? Obviously, that makes sense.
Next weekend.
Okay. But I'll be back to wish you a happy Easter. So I'll be back on Wednesday. And I believe my guest on Wednesday is going to be the inimitable Sally Wiggin.
Oh, yeah? All right.
She's always fun.
Yes.
She's always fun. Back by popular demand, okay? Have a good weekend.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.